Martin Luther King.
Yes, actually, I had in the early days when I was with the Supremes, we had a lovely meeting and he talked about our music and how...
Diana Ross once walked out of an awards show because another female singer was getting too much attention. She reportedly refused to perform on the same stage as certain artists and made demands that kept her competition away from major events. The woman who called herself Miss Ross didn't just have diva moments. She had full-blown wars with some of the biggest names in music. Behind that glamorous smile and those sparkling gowns was a performer who fought tooth and nail to stay on top. Ross allegedly made backstage demands that would shock you, started feuds that lasted decades, and said things about other artists that were so brutal they never made it to print.
See, Florence had left the group many years before I left the group, so we had an addition come in, which was Cindy Birdsong.
Right.
This wasn't just professional competition. This was personal warfare in sequins and high heels.
I want to call the stars down from the sky. I want to live a day.
The music industry in the 70s and 80s was ruled by powerful women, but there wasn't room for everyone at the top. Diana Ross made sure she stayed there by any means necessary, even if it meant destroying other careers along the way. From disco queens to soul legends, nobody was safe from Miss Ross when she felt threatened. Today we're revealing the shocking truth about Diana Ross's most bitter enemies. These weren't just industry rivalries. These were blood feuds that divided fans, destroyed friendships, and changed the entire landscape of R&B and pop music. The gloves are off, and we're about to expose the real Diana Ross. 6. Donna Summer. Coming in at number 6, we have Donna Summer, and this was the ultimate battle for the disco crown. Both women claimed to be the queen of disco. But according to industry insiders, Diana Ross couldn't stand that Donna was getting credit for a genre that Ross felt she helped create with songs like Love Hangover and Upside Down. The tension allegedly started at Studio 54, where both divas would show up expecting to be treated like royalty.
We were invited to take part in this year's Divas.
Well, Diana gave me a buzz and told me she was doing it and if I wanted to do it, and so...
Ross reportedly couldn't handle sharing the spotlight with Summer, especially when Donna started getting more attention from the hip party crowd. Industry gossip claimed that Ross would actually leave events early if Donna Summer was getting too much love from the audience. What made this feud even more intense was that both women were working with similar producers and competing for the same disco hits. When Donna Summer started working with Giorgio Moroder and creating those electronic disco masterpieces, Ross allegedly felt like her territory was being invaded. She'd been doing dance music since her Supremes days, and suddenly this newcomer was being called the disco innovator. The business rivalry got nasty when both artists were competing for the same movie soundtracks and TV specials. Donna Summer's Last Dance became a massive hit, while Ross was struggling to match that level of disco success. The most telling sign of this feud was how they were never photographed together at industry events, despite being at the same parties throughout the late 70s. Both women had massive egos and apparently couldn't handle being in the same room when photographers were around. 5. Chaka Khan. At number 5, we have Chaka Khan, and this rivalry was all about vocal power and who could really sing. While Diana Ross had the Motown polish and commercial success, Chaka Khan had raw funk and incredible vocal range. Ross allegedly resented how critics would praise Khan's authentic sound while dismissing Ross as too manufactured and commercial. The feud reportedly started when Chaka Khan began getting respect from serious music critics that Diana Ross had always wanted. Songs like I'm Every Woman and Tell Me Something Good were being called funk classics, while Ross was still being seen as a pop princess who couldn't handle real soul music. This apparently drove Ross absolutely crazy. Industry insiders claimed that Ross would make subtle digs about Khan's style, calling her music too rough and unpolished compared to the sophisticated Motown sound.
Serious actress out working on her career. They want nothing from me.
But everyone knew Ross was just jealous that Khan could sing circles around her and had the vocal chops that Ross always wished she possessed. The personal side of this feud got messy when both women were competing for the same high-profile collaborations. Khan was working with serious musicians like Prince and Quincy Jones, while Ross was stuck doing disco and pop projects that weren't getting critical respect. Ross allegedly told industry friends that Khan was showing off with all her vocal runs and that real stars didn't need to prove themselves like that. What really bothered Ross was how effortless Khan made everything look. While Ross had to work with vocal coaches and studio tricks to sound her best, Khan could just walk into a recording booth and deliver incredible performances. This natural talent gap apparently created a deep resentment that lasted for years. The breaking point allegedly came when Khan started getting invited to more prestigious music events and award shows, while Ross was being categorized more as entertainment than serious artistry. Number 4, Aretha Franklin. Number 4 is Aretha Franklin, and this was the most complex rivalry on our list because it involved respect, legacy, and who had the right to call themselves soul royalty. Aretha was the undisputed queen of soul.
I can't help thinking we almost had it all. The sky you love.
But Diana Ross felt like her contributions to black music were being overlooked because she came from the more commercial Motown world. Ross reportedly couldn't stand how Aretha was automatically given more credibility by music critics and industry veterans. While Aretha's Atlantic Records catalog was being called timeless art, Ross's Motown hits were sometimes dismissed as lightweight pop music.
What can I tell you about Diana that most people wouldn't know?
This apparently created a deep frustration that Ross carried throughout her entire career. The tension became public during award shows where both women would be honored. Industry insiders claimed that Ross would get visibly upset when Aretha received standing ovations that seemed longer and more enthusiastic than her own. Ross allegedly felt like she'd sold more records and had more hit songs, so why wasn't she getting the same level of respect? Behind the scenes, the rivalry got even more personal. Ross reportedly made comments about how Aretha's music was too churchy and old-fashioned compared to her own more contemporary sound. Meanwhile, Aretha allegedly dismissed Ross as a Motown creation, who didn't have real gospel roots or authentic soul credentials. The business side of this feud was devastating for Ross's ego. When major publications would do features on the greatest female soul singers, Aretha was always number 1, while Ross was often ranked much lower or categorized separately as a pop artist. This apparently infuriated Ross, who felt like her influence on black music was being completely ignored. The most painful aspect was that Aretha had something Ross desperately wanted: universal respect from both critics and peers. While Ross had commercial success and fame, Aretha had musical legitimacy that no amount of hit records could buy. 3. Tina Turner. At number 3, we have Tina Turner. And this feud was about two powerful women who took completely different paths to reinventing themselves as solo artists. Both had escaped from controlling situations, Ross from Berry Gordy's tight management, and Turner from her abusive marriage to Ike, but Ross allegedly resented how much sympathy and support Tina received during her comeback. The rivalry reportedly intensified during the 80s when Tina Turner's Private Dancer album made her a bigger star than she'd ever been with Ike. Meanwhile, Ross was struggling to maintain her relevance in the MTV era and couldn't understand how Tina was connecting with younger audiences while she was being seen as a relic from the past. Ross allegedly couldn't stand Tina's raw, powerful stage presence that made her own performances look tame by comparison. While Ross relied on elaborate costumes and choreography, Tina could command a stage with just her voice and energy. Industry insiders claimed that Ross would make cutting remarks about Tina's aggressive performance style, saying it wasn't feminine enough for sophisticated audiences. The personal jealousy reached its peak when Tina started getting movie roles and critical acclaim that Ross felt should have been hers. Tina's role in Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome and her general badass image were attracting a level of respect that Ross's more polished persona never achieved. This apparently drove Ross to make some pretty harsh comments about Tina's acting abilities. The breaking point came when Tina's concert tours started outselling Ross's shows, proving that audiences preferred Tina's rock-influenced soul to Ross's disco-pop sound. Number 2 is Gladys Knight and the Pips, and this was pure Motown family drama at its most vicious. Both acts were label mates, but Ross allegedly couldn't handle that Gladys Knight was being called the better singer by people within the Motown organization itself. This wasn't just professional competition. This was personal betrayal within the same musical family. The feud reportedly started when Berry Gordy would use Gladys Knight's vocal abilities to push Diana Ross to work harder. Industry insiders claimed that Ross would get furious when producers would suggest she take lessons from Gladys or try to sing with more soul like Knight did naturally. Ross apparently saw these comparisons as deliberate attempts to undermine her confidence. What made this rivalry so intense was that Gladys Knight had everything Ross wanted but couldn't achieve: universal respect for her vocal abilities, credibility with serious R&B fans, and recognition as a real singer rather than just a pop star. Knight could sing gospel, soul, pop, and everything in between, while Ross was often criticized for having limited vocal range. The behind-the-scenes politics got nasty when both artists were competing for the best songs and producers within Motown. Ross allegedly used her special relationship with Berry Gordy to make sure she got first choice of material.
Berry decided that you would take these young girls and these young kids out of the ghetto, Berry Gordy,
leaving Knight with whatever was left over. This created resentment that apparently lasted for decades. The most devastating part of this feud was that it divided the entire Motown family. Other artists and staff members were forced to choose sides, creating an atmosphere of tension that eventually contributed to several major artists leaving the label. One, the Supremes, without her. And here we are at number 1, the Supremes without Diana Ross. This is the ultimate betrayal because these were supposed to be her best friends, her sisters, the women who helped make her a star. But when Ross left for her solo career, the relationships turned toxic, and the feuds that followed were some of the nastiest in music history. The bitterness started immediately after Ross's departure when Mary Wilson and the remaining Supremes tried to continue without her. Ross allegedly couldn't stand that they were still using the Supremes' name and felt like they were stealing her legacy. She reportedly made phone calls to industry executives trying to sabotage their bookings and recording deals. But the real venom was directed at Mary Wilson, who started writing books and giving interviews about the real story of the Supremes. Wilson's revelations about Ross's diva behavior, her special treatment from Berry Gordy, and the way she allegedly treated her group members created a public relations nightmare that Ross never fully recovered from. The Florence Ballard situation made everything even more tragic. When Ballard died in poverty after being pushed out of the group, Ross was criticized for not helping her former friend. Wilson and others allegedly blamed Ross for Ballard's downfall, saying that Ross's ambition and selfishness destroyed the group's original spirit and led to Florence's tragic end. Industry insiders claimed that Ross would go into absolute rages whenever Mary Wilson appeared on TV or in magazines talking about the Supremes' history. Ross apparently felt like Wilson was rewriting history and making her look like the villain when she was the one who made the group successful in the first place. The legal battles over the Supremes' name and legacy continued for decades, with Ross fighting to control how the group's story was told. She allegedly spent enormous amounts of money on lawyers trying to stop Wilson from using certain photos, recordings, and stories about their time together. So there you have it, Diana Ross's most explosive feuds. Which rivalry shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this diva drama, smash that like button and subscribe for more untold music industry secrets.